My name is Kevin Zraly, and I'm here to have a good time. Are you here to have a good time? Did you say hello to Tamar Adler yet? I don't remember. Did you all say hello?
Yes, do it again.
Yeah, I said do it again. She had to come from Hudson, New York.
From Hudson, New York.
A long trip from Hudson, New York. Think about your refrigerator right now. What you might have in your refrigerator that you could make into something when you get home tonight. The Everlasting Meal, may I use that as the first
Sure,
book?
yeah.
And there's something I want to say before this is all your show. We have some questions. I have some questions. And also, old and new. Mm-hmm. Tell them.
Everything old is new again?
Something to that effect. Another book. By,
Something old, something old, something new. It's another
I'm trying
book.
to lead this into you here right now. You know?
Yeah, I did it, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't, this is not rehearsed. I don't know if you can
What
tell.
3 hours? What are you talking about? That was my
Well,
time.
that's the first half, right?
Oh,
And then there's intermission.
Right. Intermission, correct.
And then the second 3 hours.
And so you'll find out, speaking with Tamar, about what you can do. Like, I'm glad you didn't call it the leftover book, right? I'm not sure if anybody would have bought it. But quickly, old is new. We're here. It's Canal Museum, 1797, if you will. And new, here we are as the museum. It used to be the restaurant. It was a tavern. Some of you know all this stuff already. But some of you will not probably know this because I started here exactly 55 years ago as a waiter. In April, no, excuse me, it was February. That was Windows on the World. From here, I went to another restaurant called Windows on the World for 25 years. But I learned everything. I'm in the wine world. I learned everything about wine here in the Hudson Valley. But I was not here the night that Craig Claiborne from the New York Times came in with, you wanted me to tell this story, right?
Yeah, I love this story.
See, we've rehearsed this for 3 hours. She knows what Anyhow, Craig Claiborne, does anybody know who I'm talking about? Yes. He was the first a restaurant critic for the New York Times. I was 19 years old, by the way, in those days. And I was a waiter here looking to make beer money, which I did eventually because of guys like Craig Claiborne came in with another great chef, Pierre Fournet, and a chef that I just saw on your video there, Jacques Pepin.
No, I don't think I ever had Jacques Pepin on there.
No, well, no, it was on something that you did. I'll send it to you. Jacques is still alive. He's 90 years old. They came in the restaurant on a Sunday night. They were skiing at Hunter Mountain in a Grand Marnier race. I can assure you that Craig Claiborne was not on any skis. You can check him out, look him up, whatever you want to do. He was by the fireplace with cognac, there's no doubt. But they came here, and again, this is why I'm the lead in here, is Saturday night, I worked that Saturday night before they got here. And John, how many people know John Novi? Let's put a hand up for that so you'll know who I'm talking about. Who was the owner and the chef who actually bought this building in 1966 and opened it in 1969. I came in 1970, early 70. And he had we were a busy Saturday night, like one of those busy Saturday nights for us, 25 people, something like that. And he ran out of food. He ran out of food. And that Sunday menu that he put together was all leftovers. And those leftovers gave us a 4-star rating. So you didn't know that, did you? Huh, Seamus? You learn something every time. But back to that whole...
An everlasting meal.
I was going to say that. You've done the books. Oh, James Beard winner as well, which is really important. If you don't know the James Beard Awards, they're like the Academy Awards. They're the ultimate that you can get.
You are also a James Beard Award
I paid for
winner.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, quickly, because I know whoever was not here for me, but I actually got to work with James Beard, the man himself, because I left here on a Thursday and I got the job on a Friday in 1976. So I'm here doing this thing, and all of a sudden I'm sitting with James Beard, Jacques Pepin, the future White House pastry chef, Joe Baum. Anybody ever heard of this guy? Joe Baum created 300 restaurants in New York City, windows on the world was one of them, but he also created the Four Seasons in 1959, redid the Rainbow Room. This is people that I worked with, which was fun. But it started here, and then the next day, okay, oh, James, Mr. Beard, how are you? And that's how it went. So you have written the books, you've gotten the awards, and now we're on tape. Mm-hmm. What would you like to tell us about all this?
Well, I loved you told me the story about Craig Claiborne reviewing essentially leftovers here. And I thought that was a great lead-in because most of what I've written 3 books now, and I have a 4th one coming out in, I think, December. The date isn't set yet. But in some way, all of them are about leftovers. And they're all about leftovers, not in a sort of, tighten your belt, eat your freezer, clean out your pantry way, but in a way that is kind of making the argument that eating all of everything, cooking all of everything, enjoying all of everything is the path to a good life in every way. And so I think versions of that argument are sort of what I have been making for my whole writing career. And I love that is how, essentially, when this was a restaurant, it got put on the map, because so many of the foods that we consider gourmet, the best in the world, that we travel to eat, are humans' attempts to keep things, to preserve things, to keep things from going bad. I mean, that's how cheese is made. That's how yogurt is made. That's how wine is made. All of these things that we travel for, that we, consider destination dining places and destination chateaus and all of that, are at some point our ancestors' attempts to not throw things away. So I really like that connection with being here. And I also feel at some point I had been writing with Peter Bienstock about, did I say his last name?
Yeah.
He was saying that he felt like there was so much great food in the Hudson Valley right now and so many great food producers. And I was saying, yeah, I guess I always feel like I want every article that is written about, our great bakeries and our great orchards and all of that to in some way feature all of the ways that you can use each of these things at every single stage of its life, because that's how it makes sense to buy them. People are often saying like, yeah, we've got great food, but it's so expensive, and the only way to make it make sense to buy it is to use it when it's fresh, use it when it's stale, use it when it's crumbs, use it when it's a whole apple, use it when it's an apple core, use it when it's an apple peel. So I think that's another sort of interesting way that keeping all of everything ends up kind of playing a role in
well, you were also
fine
talking
dining.
about let's go to fine dining, because not only did you write the books, but you were also you worked in kitchens, and 2 of them I know well, which is Chez Panisse. I don't know if you know Chez Panisse out in Berkeley, California, with Alice Waters. And so we were having this discussion, and Alice Waters gets all the credit for being the first farm-to-table chef in the United States of America. And I'm not going to go against that right now, but John Novi started in '69 doing just that. And it was all, if you've eaten here over the past 50 years or whatever, you know what I'm talking about. And so she started in '71, he started in '69, not to take away. And you also, we're both from Pleasantville, New York, by the way. We just found that out. The home of Reader's Digest. Do you know the home of Reader's Digest? I'm sure you read it. It's still out there. It's still around, the Reader's Digest.
That was the only thing that anybody ever knew about Pleasantville. I guess that's what we were known for.
Yeah.
And then IBM.
That was Armonk, though.
Yeah,
that was a cow town when I was growing up.
Oh my God.
I know, she went to the high school there. That's why I'm bringing this up here. A little rivalry between Pleasantville and Byram Hills High School. But you worked also at Botanical Hills with Dan Barber.
I worked, but I wasn't a cook in the restaurant. That was actually a really extraordinary job. But has anybody here been to Stone Barns? And you have been. When Dan Barber is the chef of Stone Barns, and it's a 4-season organic farm and educational center located on 500 acres of former Rockefeller land. It's a really amazing experiment and restaurant. But when Dan first opened it, or was within a couple of years of him first opening it, he was writing a lot of op-eds. I think maybe he had written like 2 op-eds for the New York Times, always about regenerative and sustainable agriculture. And Marion Nessel, who is the head of I think the founder of the food studies program at NYU, kept on catching him in small mistakes that didn't seem small to her. Like he would get wrong that minerals, like I remember in the one that he was most incensed by, he had said that the mineral content of food diminished over time. Or the vitamin content can diminish, but that's not how minerals work. That doesn't happen. So Marion was like catching him out on these little errors, and he felt like he needed to hire somebody to get his facts right. So that was what Dan hired me to do. I had been an editor at Harper's Magazine, and I quit my job there because I thought I wanted to do something in food. And right when that happened, Dan kept on making little mistakes. And so my brother, who was the headline cook at Stone Barns.
Your brother cooked there?
Yeah, my brother was, so he was the meat cook at Stone Barns. And Dan was complaining about getting minerals wrong, among other things. And he really wanted to be a voice in sustainable agriculture, but he didn't have time to do all of the reading. And my brother said, well, my sister just quit her job as an editor at Harper's Magazine. And so Dan and I had coffee, and he hired me in this kind of like amorphous job, but was like essentially to make sure he didn't get things wrong, and then, kind of like keep my finger on what was going on in sustainable and regenerative agriculture. So that's how I learned almost everything that that was my introduction to sustainable agriculture at all. And then I also got to sometimes cook because if Dan was having a special dinner at Stone Barns and I couldn't afford to attend the dinner, he would say, just hang out in the kitchen. And the visiting chefs didn't realize that I wasn't a Stone Barns cook. So they would just give me tasks. And I was always, the memorable one was there's a restaurant called St. John in London. That's a very well-respected restaurant. It's really beloved in the kind of international food community. And Fergus Henderson, who's the chef, came to do a dinner at Stone Barns. And he was there, and a sous chef was there. And that was one where I said, like, I can't, I don't have $250 to spend on this dinner. And Dan said, just put on a, chef coat and be in the kitchen. And because I was the only cook in the kitchen who didn't have a station, I didn't have a job, they gave me all of these really, really hard jobs that I was like, I loved cooking. And so I didn't horribly mess up anything. But I just remember being given a lamb's heart and told to season it and grill it and then add vinegar and oil and then slice it and give it back to the chef to taste. And he was like, yeah, great. And so then that was my job for the dinner, was lamb's hearts.
Could you use it the next day? Could you?
It was too delicious.
I know you have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions as well. By the way, how many people here know Peter Beanstalk, the guy that set this all up here right now? So Peter is what's the exact title of Peter?
He's the president.
Be careful of that, will you? Be careful what you say about the president. Anyhow, Peter and I have been friends. Actually, he gave me my first glass of wine, real wine, out there in the main dining room. You heard I was trying to learn about wine. He said, here, try this.
Did he have a house here?
He did have a house over in, where is that again? Swangump over here. Anyhow, he was coming up here with his kids, and so they would stop here before they would go to the house. And so, just so you know, it was a 1945 Burgundy that he gave me. And I was drinking Budweiser at the time. So I went directly from Budweiser to Burgundy.
I never went back.
Bordeaux, and then to Brunello, and I have not gone back. But I'm bringing that up because he's a mover and a shaker. This is what you see is, with all of, Bill's work here. Did you all meet Bill? Do you all know Bill?
Yeah.
Bill, what is your official title? Are you the vice president?
Sure.
I'm the deputy director for collections, the historian, and the curator. And I am doing the bookkeeping.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Peter can't do that.
They pay me in time, Steve. What can I do?
All right. Anyhow, the only reason I bring this up because it's the Botanical Hills things, and the unbelievable restaurant. I think it's Michelin starred, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We don't know everything, but Peter, would you believe Peter Beanstalk had something to do with that? That whole thing down at Botanical Hills. The people that know Peter know that he did. David Rockefeller wanted that whole thing,
Yeah.
And he willed it and spent a tremendous amount of money. I remember going there 35 to 40 years ago. It was in shambles. The roof caved in. There was nothing going on. So what they were able to do to turn that place into Stone Barn, et cetera, making one of the great restaurants. So leftovers. Let's really get to the leftovers.
Okay.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I think leftovers, what does it mean to me? I don't know. It's a funny word, right? Because leftovers didn't actually exist until after the refrigerator was a common household item, which is pretty recent. Before then there was just food, and the food that you had after a meal was the food that you would then use for the next meal. And there was an enormous amount in all of history before refrigeration. Most recipes were recipes for using what you had. So I guess and that's still true in much of the world. Like when I think about my Italian friends' refrigerators, and I'm sure you've all traveled to other places in the world, and even in very privileged houses, this is obviously less and less true as people get American style fridges. But in my best friend lives in Italy, and their refrigerators are this big still. They're little things, and so all food in their house is still just food. There's an understanding that sort of all food is on a path from when it was harvested or processed or whatever, until when it is no longer in any way edible, and you seize it when you can on that path. And ideally as a cook, what you do is develop techniques for using it for as much of that arc as possible. And that's still how most of the world cooks. And certainly that's the foundation of Italian cooking and a lot of French cooking. I just know much more about Italian cooking. And the idea of sort of arresting time is a pretty new one as far as food is concerned. And kind of oddly has made this thing happen in a lot of, even unconsciously, I think, for a lot of us, where we've begun to conflate cold and fresh, which is really wild when you think about it, because anything that enters your refrigerator is definitively not fresh. Anything that comes through anywhere in our cold chain is not fresh. Fresh is actually something that hasn't entered the cold chain at all. And I think it's pretty extraordinary that when we talk about leftovers, what we're talking about is what has, first of all, a really new invention, an invention that dates to the 40s. And also this kind of weird creation of our refrigerator culture, because a lot of foods don't thrive in the freezing cold of a fridge. A lot of foods do much better, even some vegetables. A lot of foods in general are happier and last longer and keep their flavor better at other temperatures that are not below 38 degrees or whatever fridges are. So I guess I think of leftovers as almost like the fast fashion of food concepts. Not really a thing. There are food is left after a meal, as it should be, so that you have food to make into another meal. But imagining that food is so static, I think, is very, very new and actually very anti-gastronomical. To think that food is you get it into your house and somehow it's its real start time is when you get it into your house. Like that's not true at all. Especially, many, many days and many weeks will probably have elapsed before you get it at all, because that's how the food chain, our current food chain works, or cold chain rather. But also it's like this very kind of like funny, self-centered view of kind of culinary life in general. Like that there are these series of recipes that have somehow entered your consciousness because you get the New York Times, or because you get Bon Appetit, or because you follow this person on Instagram. And those are the things that you can do with these ingredients that you then look for in your supermarket, and you wonder when those are going bad. And it's this very like snapshotty perspective on something that we've, as humans, been doing for as long as we have been. And so I guess I feel like we should have a sort of longer perspective on food, both backwards and forwards, and both backwards over time and forwards over time, and in terms of where it actually starts, where it actually comes from, and how long it can stick around.
I just wanted you to know that we did a poll earlier. The average age in here is 32. Am I right? 32? Right? I'm looking around here right now. 32 years old. And so, because they are so young.
Yeah.
Anybody remember the ice box? That's what they would deliver to my house. It was before there was even the refrigeration. Ice box. I'm trying to, in your book, tell me what you attempted to do with the food products that you were put in front of you.
Well, okay, so my first book is An Everlasting Meal, and that came out
2011.
Okay.
2012.
All right, 2012. And then in 2023, I actually wrote a cookbook called the Everlasting Meal Cookbook that is thousands of leftovers recipes. The idea being sort of like, I really wanted to show people in my first book how to have a perspective like the one I was just describing very inarticulately. But also I felt like, but what if you're so used to just like looking up a recipe that you want a recipe? And so I in the more recent book, I made a whole cookbook, but where you start with the leftover ingredients. So instead of deciding that you want to make pasta with chickpeas for dinner because you saw it somewhere and it's what you want, you look up what you have in your fridge, which is a cup of leftover chickpeas. Or you are like, literally the only vegetable I have right now is onions. Somehow I have 6 onions. So you can then look up onions, a glut. And then there's stuff like that. So I sort of tried to put into practice in my more recent book what I was describing in the first one. And the first one is my attempt to explain that if you do try to look at ingredients as existing along an arc and your meals as existing along an arc, then cooking becomes a lot easier because there is always something to start with. You're never starting at absolute zero is so hard in the kitchen. And I don't think I ever do it, even if it's just like a mental goad, like a mind trick that you're playing on yourself, where you're like, all right, well, I have this 1/2 cup of chopped cilantro. Even that is something, because then you're oriented immediately toward some food that requires cilantro, as opposed to just being like, here I am floating in the cosmos, a tiny speck of human existence.
Now, that was one of my questions, by the way. I have a lot of questions we're going to go to. By the way, if you have any questions, at any time, this is an open forum. So just shout it out or do something with your hands or whatever. I, for some reason, I never cook. I've been eating out all my life until
Really?
No, I like other people to cook for me.
Okay.
I mean, the restaurants. I can't. So the pandemic comes in. Okay, I'm learning to cook. We're going to talk about chicken in a second too, because I'm the worst when it comes to chicken.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and you said keep everything. Keep every part of the chicken. I want to hear
Keep it
about
all,
that.
yeah.
But cilantro. So this is recent in the last 6 months for some reason. Wrong time to go out and get avocados. Would you agree? Wrong time to get some people, if you know what I'm talking about, the price of avocados right now. And cilantro. So I go out and look at the recipe, and I start making, my guacamole, and then, the onions and the tomatoes and all that. Cilantro. So when I go to the store, in New Paltz, it's like this big cilantro.
Right. So what are you going to do with the rest of the cilantro?
Well, I looked it up. I looked it up. So I tell my kids, Google it. You'll figure it out. And I never knew this, but you could actually freeze. You could freeze cilantro.
Whole?
Well, it's the.
I would puree it. No, I know, cilantro.
Cilantro, and how would you puree it?
Well, I would not freeze it whole. I've done it before. I think that you can freeze it, but then when you thaw it, it's really goopy. Unless, the way to do it, sorry, for next time.
Yes, thanks.
Is, so use
tonight.
what you want to use, and then the rest of it, chop really small, or put in a blender. You could do it with a tiny bit of garlic, or not, salt and olive oil. And a little bit of water maybe too. And so blend it until you have essentially a cilantro puree. At that point, do it in like ice cube trays or something. You always have this much cilantro ready to go. It won't be goopy at all.
But does it go in the refrigerator?
No, in the freezer. You can,
in the freezer?
In the freezer, but just not whole leaves. I would chop it up small and get it into a solution of some kind. Okay. A really other great thing to do with cilantro, I could just do this all night with different foods if people want to do this. But this also is good with just cilantro stems. So let's say you use all the leaves and you have just the stems. You can make kind of like a Puerto Rican sofrito. Traditional Puerto Rican sofrito has cilantro in it. And so you would just do in a blender. You could do an onion or half an onion, a couple of cloves of garlic. You could do a tomato or not, and a chili or not, and the cilantro stem. Blend that all together with a little salt, just so you can know what it tastes like. And you just want it to taste. I mean, it's raw sofrito, which you're going to cook. So I would just taste it a tiny bit to make sure it's seasoned, and then you freeze that in small, like in an ice cube tray or in muffin tins or something like that. And then you have a puck of sofrito ready to go to start like any rice, any soup, any chicken dish. Anything. So I think that's a really good thing.
Does anybody have other problems like me, cilantro-wise, or then I'm going to the chicken because I am so, and I buy D'Artagnan, the
which is based on the poulet breast, like the poulet breast from.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And actually, we just did a dinner. Some of you might have been at it when we did the dinner. We did a Thomas Jefferson. We did a dinner. Anybody at that dinner last year? We did a Wiltwick. Bill was filming it. But anyhow, we did a whole dinner on Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and Alexander Hamilton. And it was based on that song in Hamilton, In the Room Where It Happens. And we actually did the dinner. I found.
Did you do their menu?
Yeah, and the wines, but we didn't go back to 1800s for the wines. Peter didn't have any in his wine cellar. It was fun, and then we actually helped me out. The music that we had, Bill, local Laurel. I'm sorry? Manhattan Transfer. Yeah.
Vinnie Martucci.
And Vinnie You know anything about music? Okay. Well, I'm surprised you didn't. Anyhow, Vinnie Martucci from the college here, right? It was unbelievable dinner that we did, and we did do the poulet. We went back.
What, do you remember the menu? I would love to hear the menu.
Well, I'll send it to you because they want to hear more from you than me. But it was a fun dinner, and we recreated and actually just from that dinner, just so you know, speaking of, we were talking about John Roebling and the Statue of Liberty. The cement, as you might know, came from here, High Falls, and the cement for the Brooklyn Bridge and the Statue of Liberty came from High Falls, New York. Call it Rosendale cement, whatever you want to call it. But cement was discovered here in digging out the canal. Am I correct about that, Bill?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to double check with the historian here. Anyhow, from that dinner, and it was only those, remember that song? Did you ever go see Hamilton? The song? They're talking about, they had food, just the three of them in the room where it happens, and they made the decision, this is culinary to me, culinary diplomacy. This is what it is. Made the decision where the capital of the United States was going to be. And think where Madison and Jefferson lived, Virginia. They didn't want to travel to New York. They didn't want to travel to Philadelphia. And the decision was made that it would be Potomac, the Potomac area. And the other thing that was decided, it was the Revolutionary War, just from a dinner. Everybody's fighting. Madison didn't like Hamilton. Jefferson said, let's keep drinking. And they figured out how to solve the American Revolution debt, which was $25 million, all from eating and drinking. So back to my chicken. Chicken. I've read your stuff. Chicken, every part of it, forever and ever, till it's all gone. Bones, everything.
Yeah, I don't really know. Oh, you know what? I was going to say I don't know what to do with the coxcomb, but I actually wrote in my second book, which I haven't mentioned, Something Old, Something New. There's a recipe for a ragu, a French, like a sort of pasta sauce. It's one of those like a la, I forget what it is, but that is traditionally made. In my recipe I used just liver and giblets, I think, or liver and gizzard, but traditionally it uses the coxcomb. So but I think other than that ragu, I don't know what to do with the coxcomb. But the rest of it I would use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me how, because I need to know.
Well,
I'm not going to tell you how bad I am with this whole
wait,
chicken.
why? Tell me your actual problem. Like, what's the specific problem?
I only eat white meat. Now, you can be my therapist here, okay?
Okay.
So just so you know. And then
Wait, tell them about the kitchen shrink, because that...
Oh, yeah?
Because that...
yeah,
that's what we're doing. We're
right.
shifting.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
We're shifting gears.
She has a podcast, too, just so you know.
Well, I used to have a podcast. Now I have a booth that I set up that's a companion to a newsletter that I send out weekly. It's free. It's called The Kitchen Shrink, and every week I answer a culinary query. My booth is where I sit and I answer culinary queries live. So I just have a little red booth that I set up, and then I sit behind it, and you come and you tell. Right now, like Lucy, yeah, it looks like Lucy too. Right now it's in my garage, but I set it up on warmer days at the Hudson Farmers Market, or any farmers market. If there's a High Falls Farmers Market, I would come. It's like, there's no money involved. There's no, I don't know. People always ask me like what I'm doing it for, because it doesn't cost anything. But I just am doing it to give advice. Yeah.
So I'm curious about your the book. And so I guess this is a disorganized version, but you commented on what to do if you have onions a bunch, and it sort of made me think that in the index of your book, you could look up onion, and you could look up a bunch, or one, or half. And then there'd be a reference to 7 recipes that use a bunch or half an onion. And I wondered if and this isn't really about cooking, but it's about recipes and things, and why you didn't make an app, or whether you think as a cookbook author that in fact the idea of storing recipes in a book, I mean there's some use of it, but in fact if you want to help people cook, is the computer a better medium for that, even if it's not a better medium for telling stories or writing the history of the town?
Well, I like books better.
Right.
And I am the one who's doing it.
So, good point. But do you think for us, right, if you want me, maybe you don't know and you don't think about that, if you want me to be more able to use the stems of my cilantro, or all of the parts of the chicken.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've thought about it a lot. So the index question is interesting, because my most recent book, instead of you having to look in the index, the entire book is an index. So you don't have to look in the back of the book. You turn to vegetables, and you just look at onion, and then there's a half. That is how the book is set up. So it's set up according to how you just described a logical search happening. In my one life here on Earth, I've had so much of my life has been rich because of my experience with books, and so little of my life has been rich because of my experiences looking at my phone, that I don't think that the best way for me to interact with my world around me and the other humans in it is to encourage them to spend more time looking at their phone. I understand that a lot of people use it that way, and I was just quoted in the Wall Street Journal last week because somebody made an AI version of me to ask culinary questions. And it seems like there are so many people trying to make that process more efficient for everybody, and I don't think I want to be part of making it more efficient for anybody. And I think that if you don't find, if you want it to be more efficient than I can make it for you, then there are so many wonderful and efficient and convenient resources for that. And that I have not noticed, I'm 47 years old, so that's all of my life experience. In those years, I haven't noticed, and I've been paying attention, I haven't found quests for efficiency or convenience or time saving or shortcuts to be generative of happiness. And so I'm not really interested in them. And it's like, I've thought about it a lot,
Right.
and that's why.
I think you're a hippie.
I know.
This group knows all about that.
I
from
know,
living
right?
up here.
Or I have a Jamaican friend who was staying with me 2 summers ago, and she said, she was comparing me to another friend of hers, and she said, "You're earthy. You're like my other friend, you're earthy."
Well,
Yeah,
let's
maybe
go-
I'm a hippie.
MFK Fisher, anybody know who I'm talking about here right now? If you're into food, MFK Fisher, and if you've read her stuff, it's like, I know I'm trying to describe it, but it's sensual.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word, sensual, and reading your stuff as well, it's a little bit more sensual. Did MFK Fisher have any influence on you?
So completely that when I wrote my first book, I had The Art of Eating, which is a compendium of her writing, open at all times next to me. And if I was ever writing like somewhere that wasn't in my house, like sometimes I would go and write at the public library in New York City where I lived at that time, I would pull up whatever writing of hers I could find on the internet just to have it on screen. To sometimes just like go back to and like take a big breath of. And then when I wrote my third book, which is the cookbook, where there's just not very much writing. It's thousands of recipes, and the idea is like, I tried to remove myself from it. It's as efficient as I could possibly be. It's like, I tried to be as unpoetic and sort of mechanical as I possibly could be inside of 2 covers. I didn't open her up at all because I thought I would get too like poetic if I, and
Emotional.
and just involved and like ruminative. And then the book that I just handed in this week, actually, it's all writing, and maybe there are like 2 recipes, but they're incidental. And I didn't have her with me as I was writing it because I would get too intimidated, but I just had her with me during the whole revision, literally once again, sitting there open, and I would just turn to a page and read a sentence, and it somehow would just remind me what to do.
I'm sure you haven't read it in a long time, but I'm sure you have the books at home. It's unbelievable to go back and look at food in that way. No apps. No apps for MFK Fisher.
I do wonder often what her role would be if she were alive in today's food environment. Like whether she would be a food TikToker or would she make videos?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Julia Child.
Right. Would she have a show? Yeah.
She could have.
Probably.
She could have had a show. I mean, she passed away in the 60s.
She could have had a show.
She could have had a show.
But I don't even think she was necessarily such a good cook.
She was a great writer.
Yeah.
But her words and
Yeah,
great writer.
right.
When you're talking about food, that's why I said,
Well, I found the book very validating.
Which book?
I guess the recipe book.
Mine.
Yours.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know
yours,
if
yes,
okay.
yours.
Okay.
I now take out recipe books, cookbooks from the library because I am overwhelmed with them at home. So I take them, I read them for a while, I bring them back. But it feels more like a philosophy than a recipe. And more I'm conscious of not throwing things away. So if I make leeks, I'll save all the tops and freeze them, and then when I go to make a pot of beans or soup, or the flavor. And like you, I lived in the city for many, many years, but now we're up here and we have a compost. So then I feel like, okay, I'm doing something that'll grow the tomatoes in the spring. But I often think that maybe I'd be better off if I really studied the recipes and followed them, but it's just not the way I do it in the kitchen. So it's nice to have this philosophy, if you will, of, okay, I have this left over, or this is wilting, or this is what you said about animal products really stayed with me, about how much they give to give you some cheese or a piece of fish, and so don't be so cavalier about like getting rid of that. And also the whole thing about due dates and sell-by dates, and so it was validating.
I'm
thank
so
you.
glad. That's great.
Yeah.
What do you think about sell-by dates? Like you just said, that by the time it gets to us, it's already like a,
Speaks about her.
three, so tell them.
Well, how do people in this room feel about sell-by dates? How do you interact with them?
I just used some rose water yesterday, and I looked at it. It was from 23, but it smelled really good.
Oh yeah, I thought you were going to say something much older than that.
Yeah.
I was like telling you about the 1970s rosewater. Yeah.
Do people, I mean, you meet people, I know, do they get, I don't know if that's the right word, grossed out a little bit,
Yeah.
that you are using, and what happens, how do you deal with those people?
With compassion. So the way this isn't even an emotion. Sell-by dates have nothing to do with health and safety. This has been proven every which way. They were never designed to be a mode of communication with the consumer. They were designed to be a mode of communication with the retailer. Great. So that people knew how to stock. And then they also were designed to be a kind of like cover yourself for the companies, because the idea was like, let's say we both make yogurt. It's not a great example. Let's say we both make a fresh cheese, like farmer's cheese, like a cheese that is not like cream cheese where it tastes the same all the time, like a cheese that still is changing a little bit. And mine tastes one way right when I make it and I put it in the store, but then a week later it tastes a different way. Still fine, but it's like probably a little bit more acidic. It's starting to get a little funk to it. Still great, but tastes different. But your cheese, which you make in a very similar way, was put on the shelf when mine had already been there for a week. So then somebody is eating my cheese that's a week old and your cheese that's a day old and going like, oh, I like this one better for these qualities, or that one better for these qualities. So dates were meant, in addition to being there for stockists, they were meant to be able to communicate, for the company to say like, look, mine isn't less flavorful, or mine isn't more pungent, it's just a week older. But none of that there was never any testing done. It doesn't correlate to like it being bad for you in any way, other than the logical way, which is that like it takes bacteria time to grow. As time passes, the likelihood of bacteria growth goes up, right? Like that's entropy. So like it's going to, eventually over time, it'll go bad, right? Anything that isn't non-perishable will go bad eventually, but it won't necessarily go bad in the 2 weeks that's the sell-by date. So I think that mostly what I think those dates do is get people to throw stuff out. That's like the main function of them, because they don't keep people.
I'm one of them. I'm definitely guilty.
Okay, so which ones do you pay attention to and then just throw out?
I just throw out everything. I'm bad. I'm here for the therapy part. All right, you're the therapist. You give 50 or 60 minutes.
When you made your whole career on your nose, use it.
Yeah.
Well, that's I got.
You don't.
I never realized that.
You literally don't smell stuff to decide.
Oh no, of course I will. Yeah.
All right. So what if it smells fine?
I eat it. Yeah.
Okay.
But then I get nervous. I'm your typical person who doesn't know anything. Yeah, I'm a wine person. There's no doubt about it. Which reminds me, I got to do this because they're Canal House people, and they've eaten here for years. And so when we got the 4-star rating from the New York Times, actually we had a great sign on the front part there that said, "We did it, 4 stars." And then Johnny on the Spot, did anyone know who they are? They did. They own the property over where the pizza place is. We did it too. No, I won't tell you what. They didn't have 4 stars, but anyhow. So the Ulster County Community College comes over and says, "Oh, you got a 4-star rating. You must know something about wine and food. And would you do a course for us?" adult education. And John says, yeah, sure, no problem. Kevin will do the wine, I'll do the cheese. I knew nothing about wine. John knew nothing about cheese, but he decided to make the cheese. And it was terrible experience. It was a 6-week course.
Oh
and
my
he
gosh.
making this cheese. He didn't know what he was doing.
Was it really gross?
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't. I would have thrown it out. So just thrown it out. But we got through it. The first
my
class
gosh.
right in that main dining room. That's where it was. So getting back to people being grossed out or whatever. You said you deal with them with patience and stuff. But how long do you actually keep things?
Until it doesn't taste good.
Okay.
This does not apply to dairy.
Yeah. I mean, pasteurization makes it very unlikely that you're going to get sick from dairy.
But
So-
you can smell. I mean,
Yeah, you can smell or taste. Right. You could, but if it doesn't, I usually taste stuff because I also use sour dairy for baking. It's not going to make you sick. It just tastes sour. It's purely aesthetic. So it's like literally based on whether, if you liked the taste of sour milk, you could drink it. I don't like the taste of soured milk, but my scones don't mind it. My cornbread is much better when it's, I recently made cornbread that, I think I wrote about this, but like everything in it had gone off. It was like, the sour cream was like funkadelic. The heavy cream was funkadelic. The milk was like, I couldn't open it with my husband in the room. He would have been like, get that. But nothing was wrong with it. It had just soured. And it was the best cornbread I've ever made. And I have lived to tell it.
And we can talk about current events here right now. Raw milk. Thoughts? I'm sort of curious. Raw milk.
What do I think of raw milk?
Yeah.
I guess I don't have enough information to really, I mean, I know people, I have had friends who have sworn by it. It seems like pasteurization was really smart and has saved a lot of lives. I think I'm I guess if I had my own cow, maybe I would drink it raw, and I certainly have had it raw, but I don't know, that's not a dice that I personally am down with rolling. I think we've made incredible discoveries and leaps forward in keeping ourselves from dying from food we don't have to die from. I guess that's what I think.
And then you just talked about sour milk. It worked out well in the recipe. That's a success.
Success.
Where
Yeah.
are your failures?
Oh my
So I'll
God.
be the therapist now. You can talk to us.
No, it's okay. I've already processed this because I have my own therapist. And no, the failures, I mean, they're so funny. They're usually, the good failures are right before I publish a book, or they're in like the testing for a book. So my first book, An Everlasting Meal, it wasn't really a problem because it was just kind of transcribing what I cook anyway. It was all kind of well-trod territory. And also in that book, there's a chapter on what to do when you mess up. So like there's what you do with all of your culinary mistakes. Like if you burn something, do this. If you undersalt, do this. My second book, Something Old, Something New, was a bunch of old recipes. I'm sure a lot of these would have been like things that would have been made in Dupuy Canal House. Kind of old-fashioned, beautiful recipes, updated. As I was doing that, I made some uniquely disgusting things. I tried to make a clam souffle, which it was gross. It was really gross. It was really, really bad. And then I also tried to make, when I was developing a recipe that ended up being delicious for like a shrimp pate, on the way to the eventually delicious shrimp pate, which was really, it ended up being shrimp cooked in brown butter, pureed. No, shrimp cooked in brown butter, then deglazed with cognac, and then all of that pureed with clarified butter added. That was the whole recipe, and maybe a little creme fraiche. And then you would just put that in a little ramekin and eat it on toast. Like that's obviously delicious. And chives if you want. But on the way to that, I made different versions where it was like a shrimp mold, like shrimp molded in a loaf pan, and like it just wasn't edible at all. And then I made, I tried making quenelle at one point, which was there were so many good things about the attempt, but it was so like they were like little fish dumplings. And I'm sure if they weren't like the really labor-intensive quenelle recipes where it was like a kind of simpler version, but it was basically pureed scallops and various fish and aromatics, and I cooked them and I poached them in fumet, like fish broth, and it was my husband and me and 2 friends came over for dinner, and they smelled like fish food. Like cat food. They looked like dog's lunch, and we all took one bite and were like, no way. And it's really good that I always save everything, because I had a ton of frozen bread, as I always do, and I made a lot of toast, and I had good olive oil, and we had toast and olive oil and wine and, the 8 different ends of cheeses that I had. And those, yeah, and then and then my third book, which was the Leftovers Cookbook, I had a concept before the book was fully done, where the idea was what you do with all of your leftovers. So I was like, sometimes what if you need to do something, you just need to make something with it. You don't want to throw it away. And it doesn't have to be amazing. It just has to be edible. And so I had this idea that I pitched to my editor that I would have like 3 symbols to like a little visual guide for how to use the book. And the first one would be like if the recipe it didn't actually taste very good, but like it was food, like and the next one would be like, and she was like, no, if it's we're just not putting it in the book. And then I had people test those recipes, and there was one for a buckwheat, like a kasha, buckwheat cake for cooked kasha leftovers, which I don't know why I thought people were going to have leftover kasha. I was just going through everything. Like I really tried to put everything in there. And I got like a few hundred testers, volunteer testers, recipe testers. And one of them, and then I had them submit their comments to me via email, like it was a survey form. They had to answer these questions. And I had written on like this one, I cooked this once. I thought it was pretty average. And then they tested it and they wrote, I thought that your head note about it being average would prepare me for the outcome, but nothing could have prepared me for just how average this was. And I didn't put that one in the book. And nobody should ever make that again.
Well, then you can share it with us. We'll get we have your emails, and we'll send you out that recipe. So being involved with the canals with John Novi since 1970, and we actually, just so you know, we're still a group. We're actually having our reunion up in Stone Ridge with John, I think in April or May. People that worked here over that period of time. It really was never, ever a restaurant. It was a commune. We did everything together. As you might remember, it was only open Thursday through Sunday night, pretty much. It might be brunch every once in a while. So we had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's like, this part we're talking about 1972. But the cellar, you remember the Chefs on Fire? Well, here, I'm one of the people who dug that out, because it was a 4-foot high ceiling. And but we did everything together, is what I'm saying. But one of the things, John, I would always say, he had really no cooking background. His mother, if you remember Mama Nova's Pizzeria on the corner here, but he's an artist, and he would experiment with food dishes. Many of you ate here a lot, right? Some of the best meals I've ever had here were unbelievable, but then there was the other side. So experimentation, I suppose, how far do you go with experimentation? Because I've read, I was reading about one of the omelets that you made with broccolini and stuff. You put together, you had all this stuff. And you don't remember that? Yeah,
I believe you.
Just throwing it together. How do you?
I don't think I would put anything that didn't taste good together.
But did they all work together?
I remember all of the things that I have made numerous disgusting things, but I remember them all. And I don't think they were ever the product of mad scientist experimentation. Okay. They were I had a restaurant in Georgia called Farm 255, and I was in my 20s and I was hungover, always. And at some point, I thought it would be a really good idea to have a French fry omelet. And I think it was just that I had a really bad hangover and I really wanted French fries. And I was like, oh, this is like a stroke of genius. And so I had the fry cook fry up all these fries, and I made a malt vinegar mayonnaise and made a French fry omelet. And like, that was bad. It was not good. It was not a good idea. It didn't taste good. But like that was, I guess that was an experiment and it failed. But I don't think that the way I cook now results in a lot of, unless I'm trying to come up with something to do with leftover kasha. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we don't have that much time left, so this is going to be for you guys to get involved here a little bit. But any other questions about, anybody else want to share their failures?
Oh, that's a good one.
Session,
yeah.
you know?
Big kitchen failures.
Big kitchen failures.
Or leftover that you don't know what to do with.
Well, what do you do, like, for example, soup? You know, I make soup a lot. So
Right.
Soup, I mean, what do you do with
Such a small amount of
other
soup.
than you freeze it?
What I usually do is I eat rice a lot. Do you ever eat rice?
Occasionally.
Or a grain? Because what I end up doing often is using small amounts of stuff at lunchtime. And so I will I'll have leftover rice, and then I would often have like a bean soup or a lentil soup, something like that. And I will add it to that with some water, and then maybe, the leftover cilantro we were just talking about. So it ends up having more of like a beans and rice consistency, or more like a majadara, or like a pilaf or pulav or something, so that I use the soup almost like if you're heating up a grain, rice, farro, buckwheat, kasha, you would always add a little bit of liquid to heat it up anyway. I don't have a microwave, so I'm doing this because I'm doing a pot. Put it in a pot, you'd need to add some liquid. I often use soup as that liquid, so it essentially becomes a different dish, like a rice and something else dish. My son really likes packaged mac and cheese, Annie's mac and cheese, and when I don't, it's really good. It's really delicious. If I don't want to cook, then he's allowed to have that. And I usually have like a salad or something. He's doing that. But then he has to have a few bites of salad. But then if there's a little bit left over, a little bit of Annie's mac and cheese and a little bit of pureed broccoli soup is so good. Like a little bit of, it's a really good thing to know. If you have a little leftover mac and cheese and then any kind of creamy soup, great also for like potato soup. And it's also like, you're not eating a whole box of mac and cheese. It's not like you're in processed food, like full, blown processed. You're having like some. It's like a mac and cheese sauce in your pureed soup. So that's another one that I really like when there's leftover mac and cheese.
Lewis, by the way, is 8 years old, just so in perspective,
Oh, right. He's not like a college kid.
Coming home from college and giving him mac and cheese. But it probably is. You will be eating mac and cheese.
Yeah,
yes,
probably.
sir. The fellow back there, the old guy.
So I stopped eating meat in 1971 after having read
Diet for a Small Planet.
And one of the premises of that was the ratio between the amount of land that's required to raise a pound of meat or something. I'm wondering, is that still valid? And how does the growing of meat come into play here? Which is a weird concept.
Growing meat? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think of course it's still valid. More than ever. Like in the Hudson Valley, we are super lucky in that the people that have small animal stewardship operations up here that you can visit are doing a really good job and tend to actually be using animals on their land in a way that is not exhaustive to the land, and that functions in a kind of like in a reasonable relationship to their environments. Like I think that small farming ecosystems can exist, and if you find farms that are moving their animals well and treating their animals well and getting the animals can get to slaughter in small batches so it's not super stressful to the animals, and it's not stressing the land because they're also growing other crops. I think that's fine and great. I think meat that comes out of the larger animal production system in our country is exactly like it was worse than it was when she wrote that book. So I mean, it's definitely true. I actually was about to kind of decide that I was more or less done with meat when a really great butcher moved into Hudson called the Meat Hook. That's a whole animal. It's really great. I mean, because that also matters, right? It's a whole animal butcher shop. So they buy 2 pigs and a cow every week and work through the whole thing. So you can't get what you want necessarily. They have a way that they butcher it over the course of the week so that you can always get a steak probably, but it's going to be a different part of the steak because it's all on one animal. And I know all the farms that they buy from.
I wanted to talk about that too. Stay in the Hudson Valley for a second because you live in Hudson and you're shopping around in Dutchess and Ulster, I'm sure, maybe Columbia. And we lost Jack's, the New Paltz, if anybody's Jack. I don't know if you have an idea where it was all organic. Jack did the whole thing. Oh, it wasn't Jack, Abdul. We all know what we're talking about here? Yeah. So it's our little butcher that we've had here for 30 years. And so he's retired, so.
Come to Hudson. Come to Hudson.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Shop,
Obviously, Hudson is like this happening place with all these restaurants and bakeries and things. But what about farms and things like that? Can you recommend to us where you would be shopping?
I'm sure you all know. I mean, I shop up there, but I love Samuscott so much, which is over in Kinderhook. It's an amazing farm, and they do U-pick for all of their crops, which is totally amazing. So you can literally pick snap peas and broccoli, and you can pick everything. And I just think that's wonderful, and I often do it. It ends up being so much less expensive than anywhere else if you go and do it. And then I love the Meat Hook, and they work with Kinderhook. Sometimes with Kinderhook the farm sometimes, and that is great. I feel like we have a great goat cheese maker, but I don't remember the name of it now. But I also really love Meredith's goat cheese, which I think where's that made? And I think that's somewhere up here. You can also get it marinated in olive oil. I love Mel, which is our bakery in Hudson, but I know there are a lot of great bakeries. We also have a great bagel place.
They were up for a James Beard Award for New York State.
Yeah.
So if you haven't been, great everything, and they do it all right there. So
yeah, Mel is fantastic. I mean, I shop at our farmers market in Hudson, and I'm sure that everybody has their own if I get fish, it's from our fish guy.
We still have Gadalettos, right? And we're still lucky about that. Just a couple last minute questions, because then we're going to, and by the way, so the question that you had for me was, are there any leftover wines?
No. Is there such thing as a leftover wine?
Tonight you're going to have leftover wine.
Oh my God.
Over there. That guy, Seamus, has got to go, but he'll drink it all. But I'm going to show you something, but I don't want to take away from your stuff. We'll do it over there, but I brought bottles of wine that are left over.
Well, how are they left over?
It's a very interesting, I don't use a corkscrew anymore, and I'm going to show you what that means. I don't use a corkscrew to open a bottle of wine. And you'll all see it. I'm going to demonstrate it to you, and we have some bottles that are left over. I have classes now, believe it or not. All my wine classes, I stopped during the pandemic. They were all live, and I started doing them on Zoom. Do you do any Zoom stuff, like classes or anything?
I did for my last book, bless you. Only for book promotion. I've been writing, not teaching. But
I got it. I got it. But actually, I was going around, in 2019, I was in 60 cities around the world, writing about wine or learning about wine, of course. And my oldest son, who's 32 now, said, Dad, after the pandemic starts, right, we're in March, 5 years ago, he said, Dad, all you have to do is push a button, and you're on Zoom. I said, what is Zoom? Anybody know that experience or whatever? And then he hooked me up with a company called Wine.com, which is the largest retailer in direct-to-consumer. My son did this. Your children can be helpful. I just want you to know. And I do not know their names anymore, but I do know they're 91, 93, 97, and 99. and their wines are in the cellar, and on their birthday, I drink it. Not with them.
Not with it.
Not with them. Because, so my Zoom classes, just so you know, I sit in New Paltz in my Elting Avenue living room, and 9,000 people have taken the classes over the last 5 years. And they're drinking the same wines that I'm drinking. And I'll show you. So I have all these wines left over. I'm right in the middle of classes. Okay. And, I give some out to the neighbor,
Oh, you Coravan.
Oh, you see, you got it.
Sorry.
So I was just, a lot of people don't know what that is.
Well, then they still don't know.
Well, I know, that's what I'm going to show
great.
them. And they can try it. But I don't want to take away from the last question I have for you. What's the best thing, what's the easiest thing for leftovers? And what is really, you're not even going to go there to try to do a leftover thing?
Like the easiest thing to have to use as the best leftover to have?
Yes.
Oh man, okay, I think it's a tie, at least 3-way tie. It's gonna be more than that. So leftover pasta, for sure, perfect leftover. I like pasta frittatas, which I wrote about in one of my books, but it's like literally beat eggs and mix in the leftover pasta. And even if that sounds gross or weird, just do it once. Pour it into a hot pan, let the bottom set, stick it in a 375-degree oven for like 10 minutes. It's amazing. Let it cool, then eat it. It's amazing. Leftover rice. You can't make a lot of the great rice stuff with fresh rice. You need leftover rice. But like stale bread. There's so much, all of my favorite soups are stale bread soups. All of them.
And your husband complains about how much you have in the freezer.
Oh my God.
Yes, I just want to bring it up this.
And now it's worse because our freezers are full, but I have this corner of the kitchen that is the stale bread corner. And so then it has to get like really overwhelming, and then he threatens to throw them out. And then I make breadcrumbs. And my son's favorite food is chicken Milanese. So then we use the breadcrumbs. And then everybody's like, oh, this is so good. And then I get to say like, see?
Read my book.
Yeah, all of those.
What about the thing you're not even going to go near? Of saying, oh no, forget about a leftover on that one. Eat it tonight. Done.
Sushi. Although I totally have done the thing where I just keep sushi and then I just sear the fish the next day and eat it on like a bowl of rice. It's so good. Same night, I'm pretty bad. I traumatized a friend of mine during the writing of my third book because I saved a leftover tuna fish sandwich and then griddled it the next day, and then I made a little like video about it, and she was like, I was traumatized by that. It was very triggering for me. I don't know I don't love leftover steak. Like, I think for leftover, I wouldn't, I don't throw it out. I just make my husband eat it. But I feel like just quick cooking meat, like lean meat, is really better that day. Braising meat, slow cooking meat is great and is better and better and better. But like, steak is something that when I'm making it, I try not to like it's fine if you wish you had one more piece of steak. I don't really want to deal with having it left over because the fat, you open it, if it's not me, I always have to prepare it. Because if Pete opens it up and it's like, then he's looking at this like congealed meat thing, he's like, and then he just puts it away. So basically I have to cook something that I don't feel like eating for him.
So back to my chicken, okay? Back to my chicken. How long can you leave the chicken in the refrigerator?
How long?
It's a whole
raw?
chicken. No.
Oh.
I cooked it, and I just eat what I wanted to eat from it. How long can you leave it in the kitchen?
In the fridge.
Yeah, in the fridge.
But what, you cooked it whole?
Yes, I cook everything whole.
You cooked it whole, and then what have you eaten off of it? I would say, my answer would be like to be strategic in how you deal with it. In particular, like dark meat, which you don't eat anyway,
Right.
stays good for longer and tastes better for longer. So like if I would be like eat the breast eat the breast and then do something with the dark meat. But I don't know, I would make sure that you moved through it within the week.
Okay.
Inside of the week I would, but that just means making, orienting your head and your meals around like, this is going to be something in which I'm going to need to have some kind of a stewy meat thing. You don't just go like, oh, I'm going to eat cold chicken again. You think like, oh, I want something like warm and stewy tonight. But instead of making, a new batch of beef stew, I'm going to take this leftover chicken leg and chicken thigh and cut it up and do some broth and some potatoes and make something beef stew-like, but using my existing cooked chicken.
Okay. Sir, Gary, that guy, I'm very old. Can you just get this for me over here, please? There's something on the table. This is the finale. No, I'm not promoting the books. I'm not the picture on the bottom.
This drink?
No, the picture. And then, did you have a good time, ladies and gentlemen?
By the way, we use oatmeal to make pancakes the next day.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it tastes great. And I think there are a lot of international foods that are based on leftovers, like cheese fondue. They use stale bread and old wine. And yeah.
Totally. I know. That's a lot of great cooking is based on that. What else do you put in your oatmeal pancakes?
Diane, what do you put in your oatmeal pancake?
It's a traditional recipe, with the egg, flour, a little bit of sugar, and you substitute instead of 2 cups of flour, you just use 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of cooked oatmeal that you had from yesterday. It's so good. Yeah, the pancakes are great.
And you probably don't even really, I've made versions of that before, and you don't even really feel the oats, right? It's more like, you do, because I make oat bread.
We use steel cutting.
Okay. I make my son's preferred sandwich bread is an oat bread that has oats in it, but they really hydrate over the course of the cooking, so that when you're eating it, you don't really bite into oats as much. Yes.
This is the finale.
Okay.
Okay, and this is actually January of 1992. It was a publication, and they wanted to know what I had in the refrigerator. And that's my son that's my baby. He was now 32-year-old baby. He still is a baby, actually. I look at it that way. So they did. I said, no, you don't want to come. So, ready?
Yeah.
Here's the inventory. You're going to put it all together. Grey poupon, hot salsa, hot taco sauce, ketchup, grape jelly, orange marmalade, maple syrup, which you love.
I do
in
love
your
it.
coffee, so that would work.
do.
Mayonnaise,
my
2
God.
cans of Coors. Got to have the Coors
Yeah.
there, right? Olives, pickles, orange juice, 2% milk, apple cider, strawberry and blueberry yogurt, sour cream, cottage cheese, whipped cream, and 6 bottles of baby formula.
It's not a lot of solid food.
What can I say?
Mostly liquid,
I'm a drinker,
really.
right? This is what
Yeah.
happens when you drink too much. Now, anything you want to put there together? No,
I think you just make a smoothie out of all of that.
even that.
Didn't Pierre Franny used to write this, the Galloping Gourmet?
Yes.
And he would go and whatever was in the refrigerator, isn't that what he did?
Yeah.
Maybe, I
Something
don't
like he
know.
went to other people's refrigerators.
Yeah, other people's
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.